Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to be learning how to build out our drift timeline. So in this demo, I have a bunch of 5 boxes. And you'll notice when I hover right now, it's only hovering that one blue box. But let's say we wanted to continue animating the other boxes in this demo. Now for this setup, if you'll notice each of these boxes, this is a similar box setup that is inside the Drift Pro demo project. You'll notice here I have each box here has a box class, then it has a color class, and then it has either box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, or box 5. So this last one has a box 5 class. So it allows me to easily target all of the boxes with a box class or an individual box with the box and a number. So in this first one here, we just targeted box 1, okay, and I animated it. So let's go ahead and add a second one, and I'm going to target box 2 here. And let's preview this. What you'll notice now is 1, 2. So now we animated box 1, and then after box 1 was finished, it animated box 2. All right, let's finish the sequence. Box 3, box 4, box 5. And let's preview. So now I go box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they all happen sequentially. The next animation, by default, the next animation always starts immediately after the previous animation finishes. And let's go one step farther. I'm going to go ahead and let's modify this one, and we're going to animate all the boxes, because instead of the single box, we're going to animate all boxes, and we're going to reset some of these animation values that we have set here. Okay. And let's go ahead and preview this now. So now what it's going to do is it's going to go box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All boxes go back, right? So what it did here is these particular boxes. So these ones animate 108 pixels and rotate 90 degrees. Same thing for box 2, 3, 4, 5. And at the end, I changed the class to animate all boxes. And then we animate them back to 0, 0. Right? So, but the whole point here is to show you the timeline, how this animation finishes, then this animation starts, then it finishes, and this one starts, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I have to be a good teacher and show you how really quick how this would be there is a much more efficient way of doing this exact animation just for fun. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Now, I'm going to use Staggers. I have a separate video on Staggers, but just to show you how to do it, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change this first one to animate box, but I don't want to animate them all at the same time. So I'm going to go down to the animation timing and go stagger, and we're going to stagger them by 1/2 second, which is actually the same exact time as our animation, right? So let's go ahead and preview that. We're going to go boop, 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 boop. The same exact animation, okay? But we only needed 2 animation stacks, okay? And so after all of these were done, this particular one triggered, which animates them all back at the same time, right? And if we can adjust this stagger so it goes like 0.25. All right. And then let's go ahead and look at that. And before, if you look here, before the first animation even finished of this blue box, the next one started, right? At 0.25 seconds. So it's not necessarily the point of this video, but I just kind of wanted to show you what's going on there and how you can make that particular animation just a little bit more efficient. Okay, so now we're back at my longer, slightly more inefficient timeline, but this shows us, gives us a little bit more animations to kind of play around with to really show you what we can do with our timelines. So by default, there is a timeline position, and this timing setting is always set to +=0. That's a really technical way of just saying immediately after the previous animation. Now, as you see here, it says see tooltip for details. So if you hover over this tooltip, you'll notice that there are a lot of different options. And I admit that this is not the easiest, most user-friendly way to read this documentation. So what I've done is we've added a cheat sheet stack into Drift Timeline. And right here inside the cheat sheet, we have timeline position examples. So there are several things that we can do here. If you put just a number, that is the absolute time in seconds. So like, for example, if I were to put, instead of +=0, if I were to put 2, this would happen exactly at 2 seconds after my timeline has started. So it gives you an absolute time in seconds. You can also do decimals here. So you can do 2.5, so on and so forth. Next is we can supply a label. Now, what is a label, you might want to ask? So labels are awesome. They are a utility stack that you can actually add. So if we go in here and say add timeline label. Now, timeline labels, you can add as many of them as you want. And I recommend that you always add them to the top of your timeline. You should always define your labels first. Okay. And your timeline label allows you to give it an actual name. And you can actually do the timeline label position also supports all of these syntaxes. Okay. So you can do, call this my place. Okay. And call this, 2 seconds in. So basically my label of my place is now exactly 2 seconds in. So labels are a huge benefactor. I'll show you an example of how I used it in the Drift Pro demos, so you can kind of see how I did that. Okay, but labels are definitely a convenience to help you label specific points in time within your timeline. So if we go back to this cheat sheet, we'll notice that there are a bunch of other options here, and read through these and play with them. The more you play with these, the more you will understand them. Essentially, the less than sign is a pointer to the start of the previous animation. The greater than sign is the point to the end of the previous animation. Then you can do simple things of +=1, such as that'll add basically a 1 second gap. And then you could do -=1. That is a 1 second before the end of the timeline, right? So you can add things to the start and end of your timelines. Then here's an interesting one where you can actually do time differences based on the label. So here we created a label called my place. We could do my place +=0.5, which would be half a second after this timeline label. And you can even create multiple timeline labels. So I can have this label, and let's call this place 2. And place 2 is actually going to be my place +=0.5. So that way, this label is always going to be half a second after the other label. And even if I change this to be from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, this second label is always going to be a half second after that one. So this gives us a lot of flexibility because then we can use these labels throughout our timelines. So for example, in this box 2, if I wanted to start that at my place, I can go my place, and this particular animation is now going to start exactly at this time. So let's have a look. Let's go ahead and make this one 2. And not quite sure what this is going to look like, but let's have a look. So here we're going to go boop. And there we go. That's because I added that pause in there. Okay. So So we animated box 1, and then box 2 happened at 2 seconds. Okay. And then all the other animations were reliant on box 2 being finished because these ones are set to be to happen immediately after, right? So if we wanted to, we could then start, let's say, this one at place 2, right? So let's go ahead and do this one at place 2. Okay, and preview that. There we go. So you can kind of get a different animation, right? So yeah, learn these positions and play around with them. The labels are going to be a huge help because they allow you to create these places that you can then anchor your times off of in your timeline. And of course, by default, animations will always wait for the previous one to launch. And I think that's fairly logical. So I hope that gives you some good tips and tricks for building out your timelines and, helping you organize and, basically time your animations so that they happen exactly when you want them to happen. Make sure you check out the video on the dev tools. The dev tools for animations are going to be a huge help for debugging your timelines and helping you really fine tune exactly where you might want those animations to happen.